On May 27th, the First Nations community was shaken when the remains of 215 First Nations children were found in unmarked graves on what was once a residential school in Kamloops, BC. Some of the children were as young as 3 years old. These are the voices of our First Nations, pained by the loss, frustrated by systemic racism and oppression, and the stories of survivors who lived through horrific conditions at these schools. Gerry Gramma Shingoose is a residential school survivor attending Muscowequan Residential School from 1962 to 1971. She shared her thoughts about the 215 children who were found and the traumatic experience of which was attending residential school.
Well, when I first heard the news, I was shaken by it, and I was in shock, and I couldn't believe it. Like it was that number 215 uh, is so many children. I was yeah, in shock. I think I've been in shock for the last since it came out until today. Like it hit me today real hard. So I I'm just so devastated, and but also really feel for the families in Kamloops, BC, and like all the survivors that went to Kamloops Residential School, and the families and the community. I can't imagine their they must be in grieving and hurting, and I'm hoping that all the support across Turtle Island, like is gives them some comfort. Yeah, and Winnipeg certainly showed that is showing that support. Like it's really I'm just amazed at our community. Like it's across the city. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just kind of bringing to light again just the atrocities that First Nations went through residential schools. This is still a fresh wound on many people's hearts, including your own. What can you tell me about your own personal experience, just so people have an understanding of what it was like?
I well, my school, Muscowequan Residential School, it closed in 1997. It was the probably one of the last ones. Um, it was a Catholic-run residential school. I attended there 9 years. Um, my experience was very traumatic, very horrific. I couldn't talk about it for many years. I didn't tell anybody what happened. Yeah, and it was, but finally, when it did come out, I shared, and it was I ended up I had a heart attack. Like it impacted me, like um because it surfaced, eh?
Yeah,
Like it
that
was,
the
yeah.
emotional trauma you and many others went through, and you're the survivors, these
Hmm.
children that we're learning about, and the untold number of others that we still don't know what happened.
Hmm.
Like it's
Yeah.
devastating. It's devastating
Oh,
for an entire
yeah.
peoples.
Yes, it really triggered me, and it triggered my children and my grandchildren. Like, but my memory is just the last since it came out, my my triggers have been more frequent than before the news. When I heard about the children, yeah. And it's like I said it before, like it could have been me, could have been my sister, my brother. And Muscowequan, we had approximately 64 children that were found after it closed, and uh, they're going to be doing more s- radar searches at the school. The First Nations leadership in Saskatchewan is calling for that. They called for it today, so um, it's really sad. Like it's that there's children buried in school grounds, like in the various places, and like I was telling my children, oh my God, my playground was a cemetery. It was, it's, yeah, it's surfacing a lot of memories and, yeah. And you know what? The impact of this news is tremendous on the survivors, including myself. But also it verifies, it amplifies, and validates our stories. Like we've been sharing these for years and years, and nobody listened. And no one was listening. Nobody was listening. People were reading it and watching it, and no, they weren't listening. Like it was, but right now, like everybody is uh, on the story, and it's impacted like on from nation to nation.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's
real evidence for um, Canada and the rest of the world of what really went on.
oh yeah, like Canada needs to listen now. Like they need to know. Like it's no longer like taking the survivors individually and taking their stories and not doing anything with them. And oh, there's no admission from the Catholic Church. Like my claims, like my sexual abuse, my physical abuse from the Catholic Church, they didn't admit to, so that they couldn't do anything. And the Catholic Church right now, uh, or never did apologize when the TRC released their, when they released the TRC report. All the other churches apologized except the Catholic Church. And the Catholic Church, if they admit, then they have to pay. But you know what? It's not even about money. It's they need,
Accountability, right?
yeah,
Accountability.
accountability. Like this is reality. This is what happened. And you know what? There hasn't been any response. Like it's been how many days from the Catholic Church? Yeah, there hasn't been any response from the Catholic Church, and that's the way it is.
What does accountability look like to you? What would you like to see from the federal government and the Catholic Church?
The federal government needs to stop protecting the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church needs to admit their wrongs. They need to admit this is genocide. What happened to those children? Like what happened to me in residential school? Like, it was horrific. Like I lost my hearing. Like I hear I have to wear hearing aids, like, from the punches and the blows to the head when I was in grade three. Like, the Catholic Church needs to admit their wrongs. Like, it's time. It's time now. These 250 children, they um they brought out that truth about the Catholic Church. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
this
a
is
real, yeah.
evidence, a shock for everyone to just be
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah.
there's no more hiding or denying at this
No,
point.
no. Like, and like even if there's no admittance, there's the truth is there's children buried undergrounds. Like, they're gonna probably dig and like, there's gonna be findings and yeah, and it's like there needs to be justice for those children, but not just for them, but for all the residential school survivors that attended the Catholic run schools. There needs to be justice. Like they got away like in the TRC and they're not gonna get away this time. Like it's there needs to be they need to be criminally charged. They need to be charged. Like those are human little lives that they took.
What can the rest of Canadians and the rest of society do to be allies to our First Nations? What can we do to help?
They could advocate. They could listen, listen to our stories. It can't be denied anymore. Like, a majority of Canadians never heard the residential school experience. And if they did, it was like, like the story, it was one story, but now they have 215 stories. So they need to listen and they need to honor the survivors, honor those children, and support the Kamloops. Like there should be outpouring support. Like when you seen Humboldt, 16 hockey players that passed, the nation stopped. Like there was they had Canada made an announcement and it was like went across the nation, eh? Like and people were offering their condolences. I need to see that. I didn't see that the last 5 days. Only minimal.
Yeah, we need that sort of
Yeah,
reaction for
yeah.
this.
We get it from our allies and our supporters. Like at the Sacred Fire, there's a lot of allies that came and dropped off what we needed or come and sat at the Sacred Fire and just sat there and listened to us. And that's all that needs to be done. Like we don't want to make them feel guilty. The Catholic Church is the one that should feel guilty. We want them to sit with us and to listen to us and yeah and Canada, the federal government needs to be accountable as well. Like you talk about reconciliation. You can't have reconciliation without truth. Like the truth is 215 children died or found. Like and yeah, yeah, and Canada needs to admit that huge wrong. Like
Yeah, we've seen where people have said that, oh, this is a dark chapter from Canada's history, but we still have that shadow today.
and yeah, you'll hear, yeah, and you'll hear people say, "Oh, Canada apologize." That's not even a rationale. There's no rationale for this for the children. There's no rationale or minimization. Like this is real. This is like genocide. Like those children could have been like they could have been mothers, fathers, grandparents, their children.
Yeah, they could
That
be
yeah, the
the
next
next great
yeah.
artists and
Oh
musicians.
yeah, like they could have been graduating from university. Like it's just impacted. They impacted on the past, the present, and the future of those children. All 215 of them. Yeah, yeah.
All
It's
right. Well, hopefully we can continue to share yours and other
hmm
stories so that this isn't just another forgotten story
yeah,
and another forgotten event that gets pushed under the rug.
yeah. They children. I often talk about this, like when when I first went to residential school. Like I was loved by my parents, my grandparents, and when I went to residential school, that's all I wanted. I all I wanted was to be loved, and they didn't show that. They showed all those. They damaged me, like emotionally, mentally, physically, and
Yeah.
spiritually. And
They
yeah,
dehumanized
yeah.
you and denied you your culture.
Oh yeah, yeah. But I've come full circle. Like I'm so proud of my identity. Our teachings and our culture is so beautiful. Like what I mean by full circle is I carry those values like my parents and my grandparents gave me before I went to residential school. Yeah, they instilled that in me. They set that foundation for me, like not knowing what was to come, and I just had to awake it and feed it and heal it, and but like our culture and our ceremonies really helped. Like it's the beauty of, and I Canada needs to see that. Like our ancestors, we our culture survived, even though they tried to take that from us. Like it's like when they come like at the sacred fire, they hear the drum, and it's very moving for them. Like they feel that connection that we feel. Like it's so the beauty of our culture. Yeah, I can go on. Yeah,
Well, I would just like to thank you again, and your strength for wanting to share your story with
yeah.
me.
But the last thing I want to say is, like I talked about that love. Um, I want Canada to love those children. I want Canada to love the residential school survivors. Yeah, that takes away. It doesn't take away what happened, but like it's doesn't because that's what we wanted. Like I said, we wanted that when we went to school because we had it at home. So that's my closing.
Yeah, to take real
Yeah,
responsibility.
I just love my people. I love my people, and I just love Winnipeg right now because there's like the support we're getting right now. I just see so many different actions like in the community from the schools, the little ones, the children, like the parents telling them like what happened, and they know like I seen them at the sacred fire. They come and they're so resilient. Those little kids, they're so pure, and it's good to see them there today.